for a walk without discrimination at workplace, in which women and men are equal partners in shaping their societies and lives. A very warm morning to one and all. I am Dr. Christina Parmar from Parul University. It is my immense pleasure to welcome everyone to our today's webinar, Gender at Workplace, which is not only the matter of a woman, but it is a matter of male. So our today's keynote speaker is very talented and eminent personality, Dr. Dev Ranjan Hota. So now I would like to request the Dean of TISW, Dr. Sunita Jolly Madam, to welcome and introduce our today's guest of honor. Sunita Madam.
Yes, thank you, Miss Christina. It is an honor to have. Am I audible, madam? Hello.
Yes, madam. You are. Yeah, ma'am. You are audible.
Okay, so it is an honor to have Mr. Dev with us, and on behalf of management of Parul University, on behalf of Honorable Provost Sir, President Sir, and Geetika Madam, I welcome you, sir, to this webinar arranged by Faculty of Social Work, Gender at Workplace. This is though a very common topic, and many people conduct webinar on this, but very few people do it from social work point of view. So I am very happy that the social work perspective related to the gender at workplace will be covered today in this webinar, and I feel honored that I am going to now formally introduce you, sir, though I have taken a very brief profile from Dr. Christina, and it gives an immense pleasure to me to introduce Dr. Dev Ranjan Hota, who has done his PhD in sociology. He has more than a decade of experience for teaching in postgraduate, masters, as well as undergraduate level in various universities and colleges. He has acted as a resource person in many seminar, workshops, and symposiums of national and international level. Has presented, of course, many papers at national, international, and international level of conferences, workshops, and all. Sir is currently working at the Environmental Law Center for Environmental Law under the project of ICSSR at Nirma University. He has also authored a book on sociology sociology on informal workers, informal sectors. He is also upcoming with another book, I guess, with vulnerability and human rights amongst tribals of South Gujarat. I hope, sir, I have covered all the points, and if something is missing, Christina Madam can add, and I am sure, sir, your experience will help students of social work to develop this perspective on the gender at workplace. Over to you, sir.
Very good morning to you, ma'am, and Dr. Christina.
Thank you.
At outset, I take this opportunity to thank Professor Jolly for giving me a chance to interact with our dear students and with all the aspirants, those who are willing to listen and to work on the field of gender at workplace. Basically, to brief about this program, I had experience of working with the ministry, and I had experience of gotten certain kind of exposure to training, how we should understand and work with gender. Now, my presentation will be basically, this is a very broad topic, so I would try my presentation to be very brief and touching upon the most of the areas which basically we try to understand in the broad area of gender justice. So first of all, let me begin with this concept of gender, and how do we see gender and how it is different from the biological concept like sex, and how does it influences us at our workplace. Basically, when we talk about gender, we have to simplify it in terms of basic terms like sex, gender socialization, gender stereotypes, and often we must have heard about plenty of things about patriarchy. This is a very common term associated with us, and very in day-to-day practice we often hear this name like patriarchal thought, patriarchal mindset, attitudinal problem. So basically, why we see women as a subject of some kind of inferiority, why this is happening, and most of all, when we talk about gender at workplace, why we should give them priority at workplace, and why they are overwhelmingly there with us at workplace. Normally, in terms of workplace, we have two kind of dimensions. One is at formal workplace workers, those who are working in the formal sector, that is organized sector we say, and one is informal sector. Now, if you see the data from International Labour Organizations, now 50% of workers are going to be female. So whenever we are going to work in any kind of workplace, so we have to be very careful about their concern, their different kind of issues, their rights. So then only we can have a very different kind of understanding of women. Now, specifically, we have to move towards the very social work perspective. What we know about social work perspective is what little bit we have understood, and what little bit perspective we try to understand is, see, take for example, basically social work is a what I understood from my interactions with different during the years. See, basically, when we talk about, we try to the best out of the human being, whether in terms of skill, in terms of knowledge, in terms of training. So whenever we trying to talk about the social work perspective, now the situation has completely changed, because we have to talk about many kind of things, how we are going to balance everything with our words, with our practices in different kind of so that best we can avoid discrimination at workplace. And basically, discrimination at workplace means what kind of discrimination normally is practiced in India. So when we cannot ignore the discussion without knowing our constitutional mandate. And whenever we are trying to understand women at workplace, as a social work student, as a student of law, as a general student of social sciences, we have to understand the legal background, the legal connotations, the legal protections given to the women at the workplace. So briefly, I will touch upon that also whenever I'll get chance, but I will just, please, I am requesting you all, we all should be very thorough with our constitutions, different articles which are very relevant for women. Now, moving on to, we'll start how a woman grows. Then our discussion should be, what we can do is, our discussion should start from the womb to the tomb. Like, take for example, suppose and the concept of, like, I'll take you a little bit back, where we are discriminating, why do we discriminate girl child, and we start discriminating from the very beginning, the moment it conceived in the womb of the mother. So why this is so? Because somewhere down the line in our Indian society, it has been socialized in such a way that we try to give advantage or preference for a son. So from the very beginning, we started to understand how this girl child and certain kind of myths, certain kind of socially constructed ideas that has undergone our mind, that has undergone our practices in day-to-day life, we started discriminating from that place. Now, the second stage is, take for example, we started discriminating at the stage of her health. We are not here discussing about only physical health. We all are talking here about the physical health, mental health, the discriminations, the kind of places it has found in our textbook, the kind of orientation it has seen in our medias, the kind of places the woman has received, or the status it has got in our literature. This certainly definitely gives a different kind of secondary status in understanding the very woman with normally we take pride of being as a country, as an Indian, we take pride that we worship female. But when we see the kind of practices it's happening in our society, the condition of females are very not. We cannot say we are very proud of the situation or the condition of women in India. Now here also we can categorize into different field. We can talk about the conditions of rural women, condition of urban women, condition of educated women, condition of uneducated women, single women, different kind of depressed women. So there will be different kind of categories. So in one bracket we cannot include all women. But now our focus, as such, we are going to discuss here is the role of women, role of gender, the how we do see gender as workplace. First of all, the critical part of socialization, how do we understand a child, a girl child, unless we understood the kind of different kind of works, different kind of responsibilities given to the girl child in our house. From there we try to have an image of a girl child. Yes, the girl child has to be given some kind of work. Now comes the division of labor. It's a common sensical observation when we talk about division of labor, and when we look at our family, how we assign different kind of works to our girl children, and same way it continues up to the certain age till the girl or the woman is empowered enough to take decisions on our own, take decisions on our own, take decisions related to her choices, her decision related to her economic endeavor, her decision related to our choices as a partner. So now these are all very basic background of female in India or women in India. Now there are. It's not if you see when we look at the data of 2011 to when we go back to 2001, 2011, definitely we have come up a different kind of progress in terms of women and in terms of inclusivity also in our daily lives. It's not we just see our own offices how it is prevalent by different kind of women, those who are trying to make those are trying to create an identity in the society. And overwhelmingly, whenever we look around our own, whether it is formal sector or informal sector, we can see more than 50% are joined hand with us so that they can earn a livelihood for their own family. And that's a tremendous burden on them. Now, one more interesting thing, how when it comes to health, it is also started with a different kind of biased understanding of the male preferences, and from there it starts to leads to the different kind of abuses, different kind of sexual abuses. We can talk about physical abuses at home and outside home. Now the same attitude, suppose that same attitude, same socialized female comes to outside for a job or for any kind of work. She has joined in some working spheres. Now she has understanding of different kind of values, different kind of cultures, different kind of traditions, different kind of morals, where only she has learned it is always at the secondary status as such decided by the patriarchal notions of the society. Now when we come across a different kind of letter, now everywhere we cannot ignore the role of media or communications. So whenever we come across media is basically print media and social media and digital media. Wherever we see now, how do we derive the image or the identity of a woman? Basically, this is our commonsensical understanding from the discourse, in daily discourse, like when we learn about from newspaper, from digital media, how the woman is being shown, and that image is constantly imitating or constantly going down in our head and heart, and so that we try to forget that woman is having also a dignity, having also has her own identity, and tremendously she is much more powerful to establish, to assert herself wherever she works and whatever she does. Now moving on to what are the basic problem when we talk about taking little ahead like term like gender inequality. How this gender inequality affects our workplaces, and what kind of precautions we should take, what kind of benefit we should give them, what kind of advantageous positions we should give them so that they can work at purpose. Not we nobody should. We have to be very careful about whenever we write something or speak something. We have to be very careful about our certain kind of identity marker like ethnicity, age, race. We don't have here class, marital status, differently abled people, and the most important is caste in Indian context. So whenever whenever we are trying to understand, whenever we are trying to give a platform to women in terms of equal platform to women, so we have to be very careful about what kind of roles he is going to perform in our organizations, and how come we can say we are a very gender friendly organizations. And interestingly, there are many kind of notions where we try to confuse what is basically we try to we are not in a position to demarcate what is basically sex or a biological orientation or a physiological capacity that is completely different from gender. What is gender? Gender is basically a socially constructed rules, behaviors, activities, and attributes that a given society considers appropriate for men and women. So there are behavior which is certainly compatible with cultural expectations as referred to gender normativeness. And there are certain incompatible behavior which we think it is not compatible with the societal norm. So whenever somebody is performing any kind of role, normally we judge female or we judge women in terms of that constructed roles, behavior and activities. I'll give you a simple example. Suppose normally we say a woman should not drive. Okay, in day-to-day understanding or in day-to-day practices, we can see when somebody is driving, a lady is driving, and what we observe. Suppose an accident happens. Normally, the very first sentence we utter in our day-to-day life is, "See, she is a woman. That's why she doesn't know how to drive. She is not a good driver. She cannot be a better driver than male." So these are all we can say gender stereotyping. We are trying to fix her role into a certain kind of, inside the house. She cannot become powerful. She cannot break barriers. She cannot do all these things. And these are all called, we can say, gender stereotyping. And the same gender stereotyping reaches up to our offices level or wherever we work. Suppose take for example, normally we should think little bit about the laws. Like take for example, different kind of welfare laws enacted in our constitution. I'll give simple one more example. We will discuss in detail afterwards. Maternal benefit acts. So if a female is entitled to certain kind of leaves, paid leaves during her pregnancy, during certain kind of months with a certain kind of pay. Now during that period, there was an interesting case. There was an interesting case in LIC of India versus LIC versus Government of India. That lady, she was appearing for an interview and she was pregnant. And that boss, he asked her a question. So you are not going to deliver a baby. The moment you deliver a baby, you will be on leave. So how is it going to hamper my organization? But fortunately, the court intervened and court gave a very favorable verdict in terms of in favor of the female, where she could get a job. It's not that we have to devise certain kind of activities where women can be comfortable working there, thinking in terms of our pregnancy, thinking in terms of our all kind of necessary needs and all these things, so that she can be an asset to us. Instead of having a defiling attitude towards her, we have to be very careful and devise such kind of measures where we can give her some kind of work. She cannot be very physically fit to carry certain kind of words, but at the same time, she is ready to perform her work diligently as a woman, and it should not delimit her capacity as a thinking individual, as a performing individual. So this we have to break the different kind of gender stereotyping. One more example I'll give you. When we come to textbook, when we come to the formal, our secondary source of socializing agency, that is schools or colleges. Normally there also we find very ineffective ways of inadequate representation of female character in our books, in our textbook, even our question paper. I wonder, I don't know how much we have seen or some kind of invisible things we have observed. You take out your question paper from your you take out your mathematics question paper from your class 4th to onwards to 10. Always in the question paper it will be asked that the salary of Mr. X, who is a female, is 1,000 rupees per month. If you see the same example, the salary of Sita is also the female is 400 per month. So from that, unconsciously we get an idea, yes, women has to be paid less. Now in broader terms, whenever we are working, so now we are talking about the Equal Remuneration, Equal Wages Act here. And it is during my field work also, it is, I can tell without referring any kind of books, any kind of literature, during my field work in South Gujarat, in the factories, wherever they are working in the informal sector, the female are getting less much of amount in that companies. If the male is getting the due wages and the female is at least 1/4 of the wages is got, because the higher ups or the bosses in the industry, they have their own peculiar kind of explanation for the behavior of the women, those who are working in informal sector. And these all are related to a part of labor laws, which is very much relevant in our day-to-day workplaces. So what kind of labor laws? I think that teacher will be certainly dealing with this, all the legal domain and everything, what kind of things we should deal, what kind of committees we should form. Definitely they might be dealing with that. So I'll just have a few words about that, such kind of rules and regulations for that. Now, take for example, there are certain interesting things also happening. It's not like that only the females are being discriminated. We have moved from our 90s to post-millennial world, and there are a different kind of powerful, very powerful stereotypes breaking. One more example we can give. Suppose, take for example, you are heading you got a job in railways. Okay, you got a job in railways, Indian Railways. Now, plenty of female drivers are working in the railways. Now, what kind of devices we should make, what kind of arrangement we should make so that they will be comfortable at the offices and so that they will be comfortable at their home. That means they have to strike a balance between they have to strike a balance between their personal life and professional life. So what kind of sensitivity a social worker has to take into account whenever he or she is devising a set of plans and policies for them that we have to see. Now, one more positive things I can just narrate here. Now, there are many companies, there are many MNCs, they have moved beyond all these things, and now they're giving if you visit their websites, they are giving them feeding breaks. Suppose there are MNCs, there are call centers, they are working at night. So suppose there are many places, they are very gender friendly, they are having certain kind of gender friendly practices, and these gender friendly practices give them an upper hand whenever a person is choosing their offices to such kind of job or such kind of work there. Now, these are all very critical ingredients for the company to be called as MNC at international level. Suppose, take for example, suppose they have designated places where a female can go, they can bring their children, they can get a break of 30 minutes, 40 minutes to feed their children. Earlier, we cannot imagine these kind of things in our pre-liberalized era in India. So certainly we have moved up that. Now, it is not everywhere the same picture. These we are talking basically the better picture and the centers, urban centers in urban areas. So this is not the workplaces. We are talking here about the workplaces in urban area. Now, suppose take for example, I'll give you one more example. Suppose there is a university called IGNOU. IGNOU, we all know, like the Babasaheb Ambedkar University in Gujarat. They have IGNOU at national level. So what they do, IGNOU offers educations and learning and different kind of programs for the girls, for the women, for the general men also, those who are working people. Now, suppose let's consider one example as the case. Suppose there are I was associated with IGNOU for several years in Baroda, so I knew. Take for example, and I can see the plenty of enrollment for women. They are very ambitious. They are having a dream. They are raring to go. They want to do well in their education. They want to take extra degree to get a benefit in their company, wherever they are working. Now, suppose take this IGNOU center to a rural area in Bihar or UP. Here in Vadodara, Ahmedabad, Gandhinagar, we don't have any kind of problem if female is traveling in the evening, coming back and learning lessons and coming back. Same situation, IGNOU is not only to Baroda and Gandhinagar, not to Gujarat. So same IGNOU center, suppose it is operating in Bihar or rural part or Madhya Pradesh or rural center, because Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, these are all basically rural dominated societies. So now it will be tremendously difficult for the women to convince their family members to go for education, to go for learning in the evening. So now what we should do? Suppose you are in charge of that. What we should do? How we are going to reach them? Because we all know the power of education and what kind of education is a tool, and it is only education. Through only education we can broaden our mind. We can be much more valuable to the society. This we all agree. Now, take for example, suppose the discriminatory practices, the gender biases, how does it occur in workplaces? We cannot ignore the role of power equations or the employer-employee relationship in terms of how much power, what kind of power they carry, so that always it is understood that a female colleague or a male colleague cannot be same. Whether you are both qualified in terms of qualification, you are the same, but always it is seen that the background role of the patriarchal attitude, the patriarchal mindset, the patriarchal psyche of the male bosses, male colleague, how do they pass comments, how do they bias, how they are engaging the female force there. They will always try to put them down. They don't consider them as a very critical part of their company's journey or the organization's journey. So in terms of that, one has to, whenever you are learning social work, so whenever you are learning social work as a social work development professionals, you are going to be very thorough with, one should be very thorough with the labor laws like Industrial Dispute Acts, Equal Remuneration Act, Maternity Benefit Act, Factories Act, Unorganized Sectors Workers Social Security Act, so that these are all very same labor welfare legislations which we are going to interpret, implement in our company, so that one can be materially and socially, it can be fulfilled for them, and they can be feeling of self-worth. The current struggle is not about job. The current struggle is not about, poverty and all these things. It's all the fights we are working for our self-dignity, self-worth. Because we can see in our own, it's a daily interaction. It's not, you don't need rocket science to understand all these things, how women are being treated, how the working women are being treated at their houses, at their homes. Now, interestingly, there are many changes in terms of laws. Now, many changes now that the female, the girl child, they all are equally capable of getting a share in the property, federal property. Now, we have moved from older days. Now, they can think about that. They can be very positive signs of all these things. Now, one more interesting thing I would like to touch you is that sexual harassment at workplace. So, now what constitutes sexual harassment at workplace? Because we all are going to, as such, as the beginning, I already discussed with you, 50% of workforce is going to be dominated by females. This is a hardcore reality. We have understood this. We have to work with them. We have to make our company better, so that we can get better and better, and we can be termed as a very women-friendly company, organization, or institution. We should be proud of that. Now, what are harassment? What are sexual harassment in the workplace? Because many times they are subjected to humiliating, demeaning, degrading behavior, degrading attitudes of their male colleague as well as male colleague. So now, what kind of psychological impact it is going to have on the female, that we could think. Now, why that happens so? Now, at the same time, it can lead to mental stress. It can lead to mental trauma for a certain kind of period of time. Now here we have to understand very carefully what are the legal remedies available to us. One has to, as a manager, as a social worker, one has to be very careful, one has to be very understanding what kind of legal remedies available to them, those who are victims of sexual harassment at workplace. How organization can stand with her, and it's a, to be very brief, to be very upfront, it is a double-edged sword. It doesn't work only single way, it works both the ways. It can be a weapon if you want to malign your bosses, if you want to some harm, if you have a personal revenge. It can be a harmful, it can be a potential destructive weapon in the hands of larger female folk. But this time, the originality, the intent of the sexual harassment case, the sexual harassment bill, the sexual harassment or law, it is to help women so that they can be getting rid of their different kind of violence. Different violence are both the type, emotional violence, physical violence, and how we can fulfill our constitutional guarantee where it is clearly told we all are equal in terms of nobody should be subjected to that kind of harassment. So what is basically sexual harassment is? It's a connotations, it's an abusive, injurious, unwelcome, intention and impact. These are all things we have to be very careful whenever the definition part of sexual harassment goes. There is one important judgment, Visakha judgment. So there they have given complete guideline about all these things, what constitutes a sexual connotation, what kind of messages we should not pass on to our colleagues, what kind of verbal words we should not means double-digit meaning, double word meaning, double worded meaning we should refrain from doing, as we have to be respectful towards them. Secondly, we cannot pass any kind of aspersions in terms of their color, in terms of their caste. Recently, in context of this, I can give one example. Recently, there was a huge debate about the Fair and Lovely advertisement. Now you can see the changes. That Fair and Lovely advertisement is no more Fair and Lovely advertisement. It is Glow and Lovely advertisement. So these are all result of the different kind of feministic movements. So these are supposed to, tomorrow you are going to work in a Fair and Lovely, suppose a Glow and Lovely. Suppose you are an HR officer there in Glow and Lovely offices. Okay, in that there you are working as an HR personnel. So what kind of struggles they have been done and what kind of practices they are doing in that very basically in that their offices, they have to be very careful about that. Now, coming on to the next. Let's take for example, the meaning, the double-worded meaning that we have to completely avoid. Take for example, there are many physical illustrations has been given in wherever you take any kind of textbook or any kind of book related to the sexual harassment laws. What is strictly prohibited are like showing indecent cartoons, singing indecent song, leering at woman's body, then comments about women's personal life. We should refrain from all these things. Then requesting sexual favors for promotion. Here I can give one more example. Now, this is a very practical or real estate example. The more and more the nature of job is being contractual. So what is happening? Female are at much more weaker positions. The females or the female folk or the working populations or the female working populations are much more at the receiving end of such kind of harassment. Because the person, the female, if she is a contract worker, her next year contract depends on completely mercy on her boss, and not necessarily if the boss, suppose if the boss is a female, at least we have a certain kind of fair understanding. Being a female, they should be empathetic with them. But being a male, it is observed in Indian context, it is noted in different kind of research parlances, different research literature. Always a male colleagues take advantage of female vulnerabilities, positions. This is what we are talking about, the power axis in the office. So how we should negotiate that? It is because there are very great examples, there are many powerful people, they have been humiliated, they have humiliated big powerful women also, and it is for sure they don't want women into the leadership role. Nobody wants women in the leadership role. So nobody wants to subject themselves to their other gender, so-called other gender, because it is commonly understood that they are inferior in terms of their thinking, in terms of their analytical capacities, in terms of their physical capacities. They are always being remain to us. Now moving on to next one is we are going to see what kind of other kind of gender justices is being practiced at women at different kind of organizations from the criminal side. So suppose we all know there are different articles. In the beginning I told you Article 14, 15, 21 Indian constitutions. Then it covers the criminal offences under Article sections 350, 350, Criminal Law Amendment Act 2013, different sections under IPC. These all are applicable to the Sexual Harassment Act. So the sexual harassment is a criminal offences. So we have to be very careful whenever such kind of cases happens. But as an officer, as a social work officer, you have to take certain kind of steps and precautions so that that kind of cases is does not occur in your organization. Now moving on to a landmark judgment that is called Vichaka judgment that is available everywhere. You can read Vichaka judgment. This is a female from Rajasthan. So Vichaka was the state of Rajasthan. The apex court of the Supreme Court to the dangers and concern of women who are working and then specifically made to suffer. So what kind of, that means now there are many guidelines, many directions has been made till how many hours a female workers can work. So these we have to follow in letter and spirit in terms of when we see Article 14, Article 15, Article 21 of the Indian Constitutions. It's always I am telling you we should be very careful about the article, what kind of rights it gives to the female. Then there is one more, Dr. Medha Kotwal versus Union of India, 2004 decision as well as a 2013 decision, which issued guidelines to the states to immediate a state of adequate number of complaint committees at taluka, district and state level. This is very interesting. So what we should do, suppose there are cases of sexual harassment, there has to be a complaint committee. Even wherever our organizations we work, you might have seen that different gender development cell. So there we have to constitute the committee where the common grievances, common complaint, in the terms of anonymity, in the terms of written complaint, we can receive and we can ensure that it has to be a fair probe to reach into conclusion. Nobody should be victim of sexual harassment at workplace. The act is known as Prevention and Protection of Redressal Act in 2013. So I urge you all to go through this judgment in a nutshell, and I'm sure whenever you are going to work, whenever we are going to try to work with female, and what kind of things, what kind of things we should refrain from, we should be very careful. And all of a sudden there is a question, why we should constitute committee? Why we should constitute internal complaints committee? What was the legal, is it legally binding for our country, for our state, for our talukas to have legal women gender development committees? Yes. There is a convention called CEDAW, Campaign Against Elimination of All Kind of Violence Against Women, that was by United Nations, and India is a signatory to that particular convention. So on that convention, related to that, only we have created National Commission of Women at national level, State Commission of Women at state level, so that such kind of issues can be addressed. So the CEDAW convention, as such we are party to that, also clearly delimit the physical contact, the sexually colored remarks, showing pornographic literature. So these are all things, these are all small things. We have to be very careful whenever we are going and working at. Now, suppose take for example, these all basically, whatever I have discussed is basically applicable to formal sector jobs or organized sector, where we have a organized kind of, grievance cell, a committee is there in place. Now comes to the unorganized sector, where 90% people are engaged. Unorganized sector, meaning the kind of self-employed people, the kind of construction, to give you much more better clarity, construction workers, domestic maid. These all comes under informal workers. Now, if you can ask me, sir, is it applicable to the sexual harassment cases, sexual harassment act? Does it applicable to domestic workers? Yes, certainly it is. Now, question arises. For that, we have not able to devise a certain kind of law or a policy for targeting particular kind of domestic workers, targeting domestic construction worker, because in India, a female doesn't work in one place. Suppose if she is working at your house at a domestic maid, she might be working as a cook at other different places. Now, who will give the benefit to her? Suppose she is become pregnant, she is due for a boy or a girl. So now, how this maternity benefit act will be regulated? This one has to understand. So, taking into care of that we have to figure it out how we can give her compensation, how we can, what kind of behavior we can include, so that at least, because it is also workplace, so it can be say sexual harassment is basically a subjective experiences, and whatever kind of things we have to refrain as delimited by our different welfare act, and how do we define our workplace. So workplace is basically here when we can see it is a composite world. Take for example, any department, organization, undertaking, establishment, enterprise, institutions by the government, of the government, any private sector organizations or a private venture, hospital, nursing home, any sports institute, stadium, sports, any place outside the visiting, arising out of during course of employment, a dwelling place or a house. Suppose take for example, these are all clearly defined in that CEDAW. These are the clearly defined places in law and act. So whenever there is a legal case or something like that, we can take help of these and try to address through different kind of activities, or basically we should take help of NGOs or development sector or different civil society organizations. And there are many movies related to all these things, how that can be worked as a double-edged sword, how people are taking advantage of that, or do advantage of that. So that also wants to be very careful, unless if we are thorough with that guideline. So who can complain? Who can file a complaint? Any woman in the age, whether employed or not, these are given category, working in a dwelling place, regular, temporary, ad hoc, daily wage, contractual, all things it covers, professional, trainee, intern, apprenticeship. So whenever, even if this also covers under domestic violence act. Domestic violence will come, that is covering in terms of home or the house spheres. This is a private sphere normally we say, that we'll discuss a little late. So the gender specific legislation has to be very careful in understanding all this small micro need of the female. One more thing here I would appreciate as a country to India. Now people are asking for the period break. Now female are asking for the period break, and many companies, they have initiated by taking great initiative. They have initiated and they are granting period paid leave to educated female, because this is part of, we can say, sexual health. So why we should not include such kind of things whenever we talk about gender and workplaces? So these are all outcome of different years of struggles of female activism, female academic, so that this can be a part of our journey for the growth of our companies wherever we are. Now, what are victim perspective? What a victim perspective? Suppose take for example, hold the harasser responsible for his action, speak out, objecting to harassment is one right, don't succumb to pressure or diversionary tactics, report. The most importantly, we should always encourage the harassment, the person, they should report to the concerned committee, because the moment if you are not going to open our mouth, nobody will come to our rescue, and you will be subjected to much more humiliation, much more stress in your personal life. So whenever we are going to see all these things, now this is a brief about sexual harassment at workplace. We'll move to the next part. This I am trying to give as a, in the long term, how this gender justice can be practiced at workplaces, at different organizations, and and what kind of complaints he should write, what kind of internal complaints committee has to be constituted, so that in future, wherever you go and wherever you are working, that next is for her to decide whether measures she intend measure. There are plenty of legal protections to the female in this sexual harassment cases. So most interestingly, there are provisions of conciliation where your role as a social worker plays a very predominant role. Suppose take for example, now I'll go a little ahead and suppose there is a continuous sexual abuse to the female worker and you are HR officer there. So you know that that lady has become, that lady might, suppose that man is continuously, whatever it may be, we don't know about the nature of the relationship, but unfortunately, she became pregnant. And he is offering a proposal, yes, I made her pregnant, I'm going to marry her. So now what kind of steps you are going to take? As a HR officer, as a person of social work, your role is critical as a counselor, as a conciliatory measures, what kind of things you can bring it forward, what kind of compromises you can arrive onto. This you are going to be seen there as a personal, see through it. It should not hamper her dignity. It should not be any kind of inappropriate remedies, including compensation, including mental trauma, including the losses she has faced, including the kind of the character assassination she undergoes. This all you have to factor in, and you can make aware. Even if you can conduct workshop in your workplace, you will conduct your different kind of training program related to the sexual harassment, what kind of legal sections are there with that, where they can appeal, what are the appealing authority, and all these things you have to be now falls on your all your duty. Now, take for example, a false or a malicious complaint is arising. That also to see many times it is happening. A false or a accusing somebody or a malicious complaint is arising because the competition is too tough. You know that in fact everywhere the competition is too tough, and it's not easy to accept a successful woman in terms of her career, in terms of her achievement for the larger male patriarchal society. So what do they do? It's always ingrained in our socialization. It is institutionalized. There are certain things. Take for example, I'll give you one more example. Now people are coming into different kind of professions which were earlier forbidden for them, which are earlier restricted for them. Now one more example. Suppose now in Ahmedabad there are female bouncers. I was so happy as an academic, as a teacher, as a scholar of gender. Yes, females are venturing into new areas. Suppose you are looking after a bouncer companies or manpower related company who are hiring female bouncers. Now question arises, no doubt there as a bouncer they are going to help others to see that security and all these issues. But what kind of facility they should get, what kind of training they should get, it is your job to train your female personnel, what kind of issues, what kind of complaint they will be arising out of them, what kind of small things will come. So now we have to be very thorough about this kind of the daily practices and the changing nature of our this whole work sphere, and who is playing the victim card, that we have to understand. Is it a malicious complaint? It is also punishable, that we have to understand and know. Now most importantly, internal complaints committee. Who should be the member of internal complaint committee? What should be the constitution of that? The local complaint, when it should reach, within how many days it has to be addressed, what kind of setting it has to be there, with all kind of and most importantly, all these matters keeping in context to the rights to privacy. So we cannot disclose the privacy. We have to keep confidentiality in terms of if any kind of such kind of harassment cases arises. So this is broadly about the sexual harassment at workplaces and the role of internal committees. And we'll move next to this is do's and don'ts for the internal community, what we should do, what we should not do. Take for example, we should not be aggressive, we should not insult on the graphic descriptions, we should not interrupt, we should use such a kind of body language so that she will be comfortable to express herself, to narrate her stories. These are all part of always thing. Now we'll move forward to the workplace security. Now, what kind of role we can play? Rape, already I have discussed a little bit about what kind of every woman of loose morals and easy virtue. There are plenty of cases, plenty of examples they are given, what kind of things we can see. Now, take for example, I'll give you the latest example of this, the kind of humiliation, the kind of test the female folk is undertaking everywhere, whether it is work in the media industry, whether we are talking about the Bollywood, whether we are talking about the all informal sector, as I give an example to you. So now how we are going to see all these things and what kind of, suppose if you listen to any rape audio or the narration of rape in terms of law and all these things, it's very pathetic, very disturbing to see the kind of judgment also normally they pass, the kind of judgment they pass, the language this being used by the judiciary, it is much more, kind of a sexist orientation, sexist connotations. Even if there was a recent case from Assam, that lady, she has taken divorce from her husband, and she was not putting, as because Hindu Marriage Act permits to put the Sindoor, the vermilion, Mangalsutra, all these things. Now the judge has passed a very severe critical comment about that lady. You are not putting any kind of vermilion, so how you can say that you are a Hindu woman? And this kind of language one should avoid whenever we are becoming a judge or whenever we are instituting, heading a committee or internal committee or whatever in whatever position we can capacity. We should always see that there has to be a mechanism to address different kind of strategic needs of the female employees. In this context, we can give example. Take for example the lavatories or the urinal, toilets, everything. You go to visit to any schools. Simple example. Let's go back to boom. The girl children. Why there is a very high dropout rate of girl children? As simple as that. We can understand. If you visit schools during my field work, I have visited several schools. There is no separate toilet for boys and girls. And how this can, how this is not going to impact the girl child in the enrollment? Obviously, she is a soft target of dropout, and that we all know how they are helping all these things, all the household chores at their house places. Now, I appreciate one more thing. Here, the present government or the present government is doing is like they are talking about the Swachh Bharat. It's a very great initiative. Swachh Bharat, maybe in urban area we don't see the result, but when we visit rural area, certainly it has created a very positive image and it has reduced a number of instances of rape in villages, in the rural areas. So these are also a good beginning. And same thing we should promote, same gender-friendly practices whenever we are working, whenever we are in a capacity to understand a female, we should put ourselves in her shoes, how much she is traveling, how much she is taking a toll on our own to maintain everything. And now, most importantly, this is the age of performance. Whether you are a boy or a girl, whether you are in higher ups or lower rung of the society, you have to perform. You have to be competent now. So many times, the orientation, the socialization, the institutionalization of this gender stereotyping, gender role is such that we are trained not to accept the competency or efficient female as a colleague of ours. That has to be broken. It's not easy for female to compete. It is not easy for them to manage their household chores, and as long as in the professional sports to give their best to be successful, because there is no discrimination. They will be measured in the same evaluatory scales than for the male colleague. So, but the male now, that is what we think, we should devise such kind of plans where we can practice gender-friendly behavior from our home. There is a very interesting small YouTube movie you can see, Devi. It's a small one, but how that is interesting that they have narrated the concept of rape, girl-child rape, how it is happening and what kind of mindset is happening. Normally, many people complain, okay, when we talk about rape or harassment in workplaces, whatever it may be. So normally people complain, yes, they blame the clothing sense of the female. Now that we can counter immediately. Suppose if the clothing sense of female is all these things leads to rape, then why is it not happening so much in Japan, China, and any other Western countries? They were less skimpy dressed than us, so rape should happen daily there. No, it is not. Race and wearing a cloth is a personal choice. What she wears, yes, as a HR officers, as a MSW professionals, you can give them certain guidelines. Yeah, these are prohibited. These are preferably do's and preferably don'ts. But we cannot compel them what kind of dresses they should wear, because it's ultimately their individual choice. Right to freedom. What we are talking about now is right to freedom and everything. But freedom comes with a certain kind of responsibility. That responsibility, and from where we can learn the responsibility, when we are sharing the burden of our colleagues, when we are helping them, when we can understand them, when we are putting ourselves in their shoes, we can be more helping, more caring, more compassionate attitude towards our own colleagues, male colleagues, so that at least they will feel safe in their workplace. Yes, my colleague is one of my best friends. I can be easy with him. I am not afraid of him, so that I can give my best in the workplace. This is what sums the today's lectures. I don't know how much I have reached to you, but it's a monologue. And now I can request Dr. Christina to take over. And if they have any questions, so we can go on with the question. Yeah, Dr. Christina, please. Yes? Dr. Christina?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Okay, sir. So,
Go ahead. So any question they are having, I hope it has served your purpose. Little bit I could reach to them. So if they have anything to ask, please.
yeah, sir. Our academic director, Dr. Manisha Pathak, she asked about what law, policies, or strategy are there to judge the authenticity and genuineness of the female employees' complaint of sexual harassment at the workplace.
Okay. Yeah, Dr. Pathak, I would be very happy to answer you, because the genuineness, see, this is at the very beginning I already spoke about. It's a double-edged sword. So it all depends on our internal complaint committee mechanism. And all the internal complaint committee mechanism has to be very much representative. It has to be representative from all level of workers, so that we can be much more empathetic and we can scrutinize the evidences, whatever she is submitting. Only through her, then we have to track her past incidences, her past record as an employee wherever she has worked. So we can safely assume whether she is making a cast aspersions on others, or if she is targeting somebody, what is her intentions, what is her, the motive to do that. Then only we should give some time to that. We should be very patient with them to listen to both the parties. And as again, I'm repeating it, the internal committees have to be much more representative, to have all kind of view and have a consensual agreement whether that company is fake or genuine. For that, you have to check their antecedent of the past. These all these small things I can help. Yeah. Yes, Dr. Christina.
Second question is now these days it is seen that many successful male employees are targeted, harassed, shaped off by such allegations. So what can be done, sir, in these kind of cases?
See, this is what, how do we measure success? That is what I say in the beginning. See, these are all successful, who are successful and who are not. And successful in terms of, I will say, every organization has to be measured in terms of gender friendly practices. Every organization has to be devise scales. Yes, we are gender, we promote gender, we give equal importance to different kind of women. We give a special component, we give special component if somebody is disabled, if somebody is bad. So these all have to include. and targeting that. That is what I always say. Law is a double-edged sword. So now, the law as such is neutral. Law as an institution is good. The people interpreting the law, they are bringing their own ideology, they are bringing their own biases. So for that, we don't have any. And make sure, I'm 100% sure, nothing is going to end in the court. It is always mutual. If you can see it, that is what I said in the during the lecture also. The role of social worker as a conciliator, the role of social worker as a mediator, the role of social worker as a counselor. You have to give plenty of time to listen to them so that we can know we try to know the real truth. We cannot say, like take for example, media trial. If somebody writes something about you in WhatsApp, people are very touchy now, they feel offenses and they say, no, I'm spoiled and everything. No, it's not like that. This is a virtual world. This is a virtual, that is their job, they will do, because there has been certain kind of research is operated behind that, and that they are ready to, we are products for them. So they know this negative thing, they swell, they give good market to them. They will give them their readership or viewership. No, not like that. It is always our own learning, own institutional learning, how much successful we are in terms of becoming a sympathetic, empathetic co-worker with our teammates. Rest of the things will fall flat during time or in terms of court verdict also, in terms of evidences also. I'm 100% sure it will fall flat. It will not last. Yeah. Yes, Dr. Christina.
Yes, sir. So, as you know, sir, we want to know more from you, but just because of the lack of time, sir, definitely we will invite you for the next time. So here, sir, right now my dean is busy with some another work. So on behalf of her, I would like to thank you, sir. I extend heartily vote of thanks to you, sir. You performed as an expert in today's webinar in your busy schedule, because I know how much you are busy. Your lecture is very important on the gender at workplace, which is not the only matter of the woman but the matter of the male, as many of the people are taking disadvantage of it, especially in the case of the woman sexual harassment at workplace 2013. As well as special thanks to our Dean, Dr. Sunita Jolly Madam, for continuous support and guidance. I am also thankful to our academic director, Dr. Manisha Pathak, and all the staff members for their active participation and motivating our students for the same. Special thanks to the technical team, Brijesh Acharya sir and Kubani sir, for providing us technical support. And last but not the least, all my dear students from different universities, Nirma universities, Parul universities, Children's University, Central University of Gujarat, and all the participants, because without your presence, this seminar cannot be success. So once again, thank you so much. And sir, Deep sir, on behalf of Manisha Madam, our academic director, she conveys special thanks to you, sir, for your answer. So thank you so much, sir. It was a really very fruitful and very, interesting seminar. Thank you so much, sir.
Okay, sir.